Greetings, this is Ty Brown with Athletic Director U, and I'm here with Jim Knowlton. He's the Director of Athletics at Cal, and we'll talk about strategic alliances on campus. Greetings, Jim. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here, Ty. Thanks for having me.
Now, Jim, you've mentioned on multiple occasions during your first year about the importance of strategic alliances on campus. What I want to talk to you about it is why is that important, and tell me how you go about starting the process of making those alliances.
Sure, and I think for me as a new athletic director at Cal, just as I've done at each of the other schools, having a partnership with the rest of campus is critical. And you really want them to know that you're an integral part and not a separate entity when you're on a campus. And so what I found with Cal as I've gone through these first 8 months is how do you get out and meet and integrate and talk about ways to really be a partner, a campus partner. And as a former faculty member, I taught civil engineering at West Point in a previous life. I know sort of what the faculty is looking for from athletics. How could we help? How could we be a part of it? And so really, I had to spend some time in those first 8 months learning where are we, what are we doing well, what do we need to improve, and then how can we begin to integrate? How can we begin to have partnerships? How can we begin to relate with the organization on campus so we're a key player? Right. And I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but I have a very deliberate way that I learn where we are with this listening days, and I think that's helped us get an idea of what we can do and what we can focus on.
I will ask you about your listening days, but before we get there, in your stops as athletics director and even during your career in the military, how do you measure the outcomes, the quality? How do you evaluate the strategic alliances when you make them on campus?
Yeah, and I think, to put metrics on each one of them is probably difficult, but I think in part it's really how do people feel about, the department? How do people feel about it and talk about the department? How do they embrace your student athletes on campus? How do they embrace the events that you put on? Do they come and participate in some of those things? And so I think you're evaluating that every single day. Where are the faculty going? Where do they spend their time? How do we celebrate excellence in academics across the campus, not just with student athletes? And how do they celebrate excellence in athletics? And they'll be both mutually supporting of each other as a good sort of beginning litmus test of where are you? And if you're not getting invited to things, if people aren't engaging your athletes and people aren't communicating with the athletic department, you got a problem. You need to start really working hard to get out and be visible and be engaging. And I think those are some of the first steps in how you evaluate how we're doing.
How you're doing. And you can see it's tangible.
No, it's real. Yeah, it's real. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned those listening days, right? And I hear a lot of leaders talk about you want to come in and you want to take 90 to 100 or however many days to learn everybody, make a feel of what is going on campus, where the problem areas are, what are the challenges, what are the celebrations, those kind of things, and then move forward from there. Talk to us about your listening days. And I've always wondered, how do you process the information you gather?
It's a great question. And I wrote my SMI report back 15, 20 years on how do you take over as an athletic director and what do you do in your first 90 days. And ever since then, I've been refining that, and I've been going through and looking at what went well and when I took over and what didn't. And so I have a pretty deliberate way that I do my first 90 days. And so a month before I arrived at Cal, I sent a 10-page PowerPoint slide presentation that was empty, and it's a SWOT analysis enhanced for athletics. And so for a month, the whole department, 30 sports and then 15 business units worked on putting together their presentation. And when I arrived, every day, so I laid it out 3 days for listening days and 2 days to get out and meet alums around the country. And I did a 75-minute session with each coach in their program and then with each business unit. So you can imagine it's a time sink, and by the end of each day, you're kind of shaking the cobwebs out a little bit. But it really allowed them to tell me, and I had senior leaders with me, what are we doing well? Where can we improve? Where are opportunities that we haven't taken advantage of? And what are some of the threats that really affect our ability to be exceptional? And so once I gathered all of that information over 90 days, I felt like I'd been jump-started in my knowledge of where is the athletic department right now? And then we built an execution plan for each one of those sports on, all right, here's what they told us. here are the 5 top priorities. Now, what are we going to do about each to fix? And some are easy fixes. Some we fixed while we're in the meeting. Some we were able to develop a plan over 3 months to fix. And then obviously, if we need a new stadium or a new field, it's going to take a little bit longer, but it's okay. Now we know what the needs are. Now we can start prioritizing. And what that's allowed us to do is now move into developing a vision for the athletic department and then a strategic plan. And so those are the next steps over the next 6 months that we'll work on. That all really started with listening days and what we learned during those first 90 days.
I'll ask you one more question about that before we move on. You send, this is kind of a rehash for me. You send everybody the same PowerPoint, but it's blank. They have to fill it in, and then you come on campus, and then they have to present to you. And so you've created a kind of an evergreen structure for your brain to process, right? So everybody's not getting you different craziness. And then they fill it in, and then you get the information, you take it back and you process on it, right? That's a lot of processing. Do you sleep at night? How do you?
Well, then I spend the nights kind of going through what I've learned.
Right.
And then we develop this plan on how we are going to then take each of those pieces of information that we now have. And it's amazing because even the senior leadership that's been there, some of the things they hear are new. Like, wow, I didn't realize that was a challenge. And then we talk about that. And then by the end of this, we've just finished. So it took us 3 months after to develop a plan for each of the programs that is now our way forward. What are we going to do and how are we going to prioritize and how are we going to put resources to each one of those? And, it was funny because my first day on the job, I had one of the coaches ask, and I talked to the whole department. So these listening days, are they really just a meet and greet? And I said, absolutely. For the first 30 seconds, we're going to do a meet and greet. Right. But the next 74 minutes and 30 seconds, we better dig down and really, really get into your program and really the good, the bad, and the ugly of how where we are right now and where we're going to go.
After you've processed all that data, which gives you a good, healthy look at the athletics department, I imagine some key points in the data that you process tie into where we need to strengthen the alliances on campus. Right. Tell me about the plan you're rolling out now in terms of making those relationships on campus tied to the listening days. And
you mentioned one of the 9 priorities for this year that we're working on, and one of those is the integration piece. And it came up time and time again that because we're not integrated in some areas, these are the challenges that come from not being integrated. And so it helped us also say, it's not just this particular sport that has to do something. There's many things that come out of those meetings that really the athletic department, the athletic director, the athletic director's staff has to do to engage the campus to give us a better relationship, to really make things better, easier, smoother. And all of that comes out of those listening days, because you can see that challenge for that coach or that business unit as a result of us not being better integrated with the university.
Right. I'd imagine from when you were an intern at Army to RPI to Air Force, that the listening days process has been refined and gotten a lot better. Can you tell us, every place is different, but is there a commonality in terms of creating those alliances from those different institutions that you've been?
Absolutely. And you can imagine each one of those schools is different. But I think in the end, good organizations are looking for vision. They're looking for a very deliberate way of how we're going to become exceptional. And so whether you're at Army, whether you're at Cal, people in your department and really the whole school wants to be proud of athletics. They want it to be a unifier, a builder of affinity for the student body, for alums, and really for the community. And so each one of those really wants, what's the vision? Where are you going? And what's your strategic plan to get there? How are you going to solve problems? And if it's not a very deliberate way, it's hard for them to see we're making progress. There's no metrics. And so you can't look and say, okay, they're on the right track. They're working in a direction, if they can't see that. But by having a vision, by having a strategic plan, and by having a very deliberate approach and disciplined approach to how are we going to go from good to great, then people start rallying around it and say, wow, I already see some things happening. I really feel good about what we're doing. For me, the alignment with the chancellor at Cal has been critically important. And because we're in lockstep and we communicate just really continually, that has helped us make sure that the vision that we're developing and the strategic plan that we're developing through these listening days is in alignment and nested with the strategic plan of the university.
Right. I'd imagine you put those systems and processes in place that are tied to the things you just said, and it creates that flywheel, right? Exactly. So things exponentially start getting better and things work and work and work. And so you're probably in that process of slowly making that first turn on that flywheel now.
Yeah, and you got to build momentum. And I think with early successes, and some of them are small successes, people start to get that feeling that we are moving, we've got some momentum. They hear something good from the chancellor or a faculty member or some good feedback and say, wow, we are now making some progress, and let's keep building. This is fun. Let's continue to build on that.
Yes, sir. Again, this is Ty Brown with Athletic Director U, and I'm here with Jim Knowlton, Athletics Director at Cal, and we're talking about strategic alliances on campus. Now, the president, Chancellor Christ, she seems like she is an advocate of athletics and what it can do for the university. When interviewing for the job, when you were interviewing them for the job that you have now, right? And researching and deciding where to go, was her enthusiasm for athletics something that kind of created a spark for you to want to be there?
Absolutely critical. And we all know that Cal is the best public school on the globe. It's the number one public school in the country. It's, for me, education is critical. If you look at everywhere I've been, they're top academic institutions. And so that was a no-brainer, but you have to have alignment with the chancellor for, athletics to be able to continue to get better. And when I met with her and we talked and we had an hour one-on-one session, I could tell right away that she really supported not just student athletes, but students wherever they were. And so for me, I didn't need her to just say, I'm really a supporter of athletics. I just was really refreshing to hear her talk about students and what she's doing for students across campus. And I'll also acknowledge that student athletes are doing a lot of different things. They're really busy, and their educational experience, developmental experience is critical to the success of the campus. So she was a big part of me saying yes. And there were a couple things that she did right away that allowed me to sort of jumpstart the process. She put me on her cabinet. And if I'm going to be a thought leader on campus, being on her cabinet and being part of her leadership team was critically important, so that we're in the discussion every week on some of the strategic decision-making that's going on. And so I think those kind of things right away told the campus as well that I value athletics. They're a part of our team, and we want to make sure they're integrated in all they do.
Which is very important. And as your relationship progresses with her and your tenure at Cal continues on, how has she, I guess, actively helped you with the strategic alliance, that priority on your nine priorities? How has she helped you?
Well, I think it's every day. There's different things, whether we're on the road together talking to alums, whether we're talking about budgets, whether we're talking about some of the grand challenges of, the university's taken on globally, for her to acknowledge, be supportive, and then make sure she publicly is talking about how important each part of Cal is. And then in particular, when she talks about athletics and how it's a part of the fabric of the university, that in and of itself allows me to open doors in other places on campus and have conversations. And so just knowing that she's supportive allows other people to say, yeah, of course I'll take a meeting. Yeah, let's talk about how we can work together and some of the ways that we can help each other. And I think for us to be integrated, it starts at the top. And for her to be really receptive and supportive has allowed me to get into doors that I might not otherwise have been able to open.
I almost imagine it kind of makes you giddy a little bit.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, I mean, you go to work every day and your feet don't touch the ground, and you say, this is the right place. This is a great place, and the opportunities and the really the ability to be exceptional is right there. We just have to continue to grind, and it's going to come.
All right, and I'll ask this last question kind of to wrap this up. If you're talking to people who are in leadership roles, other athletic directors, or people who strive to be athletic directors, or leading any type of organization, what do you suggest some of the first things they do when they take over an organization, in addition to listening days or in addition to whatever their method is in terms of alliances within the organization or out around the surrounding area?
Yeah. Well, I think the operative word is listening. And so, I've talked to you about the deliberate way I do internally, and then externally, I did the same thing with alums. So, I've been my first 8 months, 10 days in China and Hong Kong, meeting our alums over there, and New York City 3 times, and Boston. And so you have to be a good listener. And you not only have to be a good listener, but you have to also be able to listen, take the information that you're getting, and then really analyze, what are they really trying to tell me? What is the root challenge that they're addressing when they complain about something or they talk about something? And so I think listening is really important. Deliberate listening is important. And I think every time you learn something, if someone tells you something and then you throw it in the basket and don't worry, don't do anything, they're going to say, he may have listened, but it didn't stick. And so you really have to look at, and when you're listening, talk to people about, that's a great idea. Let me see how I can incorporate that. Or, it's too early for us to start thinking about that, but I like the idea. And so I think active listening is probably the right term. And then being able to then sort of bring it back, talk about it, and see how you can use it as an actionable item to strive to fix. Yeah.
So listen, analyze, and then decide if you can use the information to move forward with your plan. It's excellent information. Tim, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on Athletic Director U.
Ty, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
No problem. That was Jim Knowlton. He is the athletics director at Cal Berkeley. And of course, this is Ty Brown with Athletic Director U. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.